Hello, my friends, it's Dani, and I cannot believe that we are already halfway through our 10-week intuitive eating series. Now, last week we were chatting all about the food police. So it's that little voice inside your mind that's constantly telling you what you should and shouldn't be eating. And this week we are going to talk about recognizing and honoring your fullness. Now, for those of you who are just joining, if you have not watched the first half of the series, I do recommend going back and taking a look at each video. I will link to each one down in the description box below. All of these principles do tend to work together, so I think taking a look at the whole series would be really beneficial. And of course, if you know anybody who's wanting to create a kind and nourishing relationship with food, please share this with them as well. So let's chat fullness, shall we? So many of us are stuck in patterns of eating without savoring our food, without enjoying our food, that it becomes tricky to really tap into what it feels like when our body is satisfied and has had enough. We eat in a hurry, we eat on the run, we eat standing up, we eat in the car, we eat when we're distracted, or we eat when we think we should eat according to a clock, or we have this idea that we need to finish everything on the plate. And all of these things pull us away from our internal cues of satisfaction and fullness. A big part of creating a healthy relationship with food is learning to recognize when you've had enough. Respecting your fullness comes down to one very important key factor, which we've spoke about in prior videos, and that is giving yourself unconditional permission to eat. Because if you are not doing this, it's very easy to go back past fullness. Because if you're eating a food that you're not supposed to be eating, it only makes sense that you're going to eat as much of it as you can, since you're never going to be eating it again, or since you're not supposed to eat it, right? It's when we have all of these restrictions and rules around food that we slip into that gotta get it all in mentality. So step number one with respecting your fullness is to give yourself unconditional permission to eat what you want when you want it. And then from there, we really just want to avoid starving ourselves and stuffing ourselves. We want to stay in that comfortable zone of building an appetite and then eating to a place of satisfaction and energy and fullness. Now, a great tool to help you start to identify what fullness feels like in your body is the hunger scale that I shared a few weeks back. If you did not get that, I'm going to link to it again down in the description box below. Anybody who is on my newsletter list should have already gotten this into their inbox. And if you're not on the list, then again, it will be available for you down below. This is a tool that just helps to give you some cues and directions to understand what fullness might feel like in your body. But do remember, it's a very personal experience, and it's really something you have to practice knowing from the inside out. But ultimately, what you want to start practicing and noticing is, what does it feel like to be comfortably satiated in your body? Some people say that it feels like a comfortable fullness. Other people say that it doesn't feel like anything. It doesn't feel like being full. It doesn't feel like being empty. I personally always think of it as eating to a point of energy. When I'm hungry and I'm feeling a little depleted and I eat something, I feel like I'm revved up again and I'm ready to go. But like I just said, it is a very personal thing. So it's something that you're going to want to discover for yourself with the signals from your own body. It's much easier to recognize when your body is comfortably satiated when you have permission to eat again later, right? When you know, if I get hungry, I can eat more food, it's much easier to stop when you're ready to stop. If you have a bunch of food rules and regulations around what you can't and can't eat, it gets a little bit trickier because that thing clicks off in our brain that maybe wants to get it in while we can, right? So ultimately, what we're looking for here is for our body to guide us in telling us what we want to eat and when we want to eat and how much we want to eat. Now, at the beginning, when you start to practice this, you want to be hyper aware when you are eating so that you can really tune in to the subtle signs of being satiated. And this, of course, is not something that you need to do at every meal every single day, but maybe just pick one meal per day that you can use as your practice ground. And a great tool is to check in with your meal after you've eaten about, say, halfway through the meal. Check in with yourself and ask yourself the following things. Number one, are you enjoying the taste of what you are eating in this moment? Or are you not enjoying it and just kind of going through the motions of eating it because it's what's in front of you. If that's the case, you want to give yourself permission to stop eating it and choose a food that you are really going to enjoy and you really can savor in the moment. The second thing you want to check in on is your satiety. So are you still hungry? Are you beginning to reach a point of fullness? Are you satisfied with the meal? Are you needing more? Are you just about rounding out here? You can really use this as an opportunity to use the hunger scale to help guide you along, so you can kind of put words to the sensations that you're having in your body and get really good at identifying your hunger level and your fullness level. Ultimately, you want to get really good at kind of noticing when you reach that point of feeling really satisfied and nourished and energized by your meal. And then the third thing you want to do is when you're done eating, just check in with yourself one more time and say, what point of fullness am I at? Do I feel good? Do I feel nourished? Do I feel satiated and energized? Or did I eat a little bit too much? Right? Remember that this is a practice. This is not about you getting it right every single time and never overeating or never eating a little bit too much. It's about you learning to be in that relationship with your body and with the food that you're eating so that you have a better understanding and you can eat and enjoy food in a way that makes you feel really good. And the more you're able to honor your hunger, that was principle number 2 in this series, right? The easier it's going to be to recognize your fullness and know when you've had enough food. So remember that all of these principles really do work together, and it's simply an ongoing practice of noticing and adjusting and tweaking and noticing and adjusting and tweaking. And also, it's important to note that just because you notice that you are satiated, it doesn't mean that you have to stop eating. Sometimes we still want that little extra something. Maybe you're satiated and you want to still have that ice cream cone with your kids, or you're satiated and you want to go get that cappuccino with your husband or your girlfriend or yourself. That's fine. This isn't about being perfect. This is about learning to recognize your body's signals and cues and then being in a relationship with food that ebbs and flows. Ultimately, the body craves homeostasis. It wants to be in balance, right? And it will find that place when given the opportunity to. So if you do have a little more 1 or 2 days, or even for a whole entire week, eventually the body will find its balance. So if you allow yourself to just trust that process a little bit, it might be a very interesting experience to watch how it unfolds. So how do you actually know if you have overeaten? Well, again, this is very personal and it will vary from body to body, but some common side effects or feelings that we experience when we overeat are, if you notice that you're just kind of eating mechanically, you're not savoring and enjoying the food anymore, or the food doesn't taste really good to you anymore, that's a sign that you could be done eating. Another sign is that you're no longer enjoying the food. Another sign is simply that you're stuffed and uncomfortable. We've all been there before. And another sign can be you eat and then you're feeling sluggish after you eat. I think I mentioned this before, but when you eat, really you want your eating to bring you to a point of energy. So if you really truly wait until you're hungry to eat, being hungry often creates a dip in our energy and our focus. And then when you eat again, you should feel like refueled and ready to go. So those are all some signs to keep a lookout for. But of course, ultimately, you will have your own experience with your own body, so just continue to pay attention. And also note that being busy, being stressed, being distracted, all of these things can make it a lot harder to tune into those natural body signals. And so if you find that you ate a meal and you did overeat, do not use it as an opportunity to beat yourself up or to be hard on yourself. Just notice it and stay curious and use it as an opportunity to learn something new about yourself. You do not have to use it as an opportunity to restrict food at your next meal. You just simply wait until you feel hungry again, and then you just continue on business as usual. And then one last tip that I find very helpful that I read in the Intuitive Eating book is to create a little ritual or habit for yourself once you've decided that you've had enough food. So maybe that's simply you push your plate away from you, or maybe you take your fork and your knife and you just cross them across your plate, or maybe you put your napkin over your plate. Just something so that this way, if you find yourself sitting when you're done eating and then you kind of get into that snacky mode or you go for a couple extra bites, you just have some type of visual cue to remind you, hey, we have decided to stop eating at this point. I personally really like that tip because I know if I'm at the dinner table with my family and I've finished eating, but we're still there chatting and they're still eating, that I have a tendency to kind of continue picking. So just giving a visual cue was something that really resonated with me. Perhaps it will resonate with you. So just to kind of tie that all together, we want to remember that rule number 1 is full permission to eat what you want when you want it. So taking the mental rules and restrictions off of your food. Then we want to make sure that we're limiting our distractions when we're eating and that we're really present with the meal and enjoying the food that we're eating. And then pay attention and honor your signals of fullness and hunger. They really do work together, right? So when you really feel yourself feeling hungry, you have some food, it's much easier to notice the signs of fullness that your body is trying to share with you. And of course, guys, as we are constantly reiterating, the goal here is not perfection. It's not to do it right every single time. This is not a diet substitute. This is a practice. So use it as that and don't get harsh and tight and critical around the whole thing. You want to stay easy and curious. We are simply reflecting on physical sensations and then practicing honoring them. And finally, if you find that you are taking all of these tips and you still want to eat when you're not hungry, or you're full but you're not satisfied when you're done eating, make sure that you tune in over the next couple weeks because we are going to be diving into those experiences as well. Thank you all so much for watching. This was video number 5 in our 10-week intuitive eating series. Next week, we're going to be moving on to video number 6, where we're going to be talking about one of my favorite food topics, which is being satisfied and receiving the pleasure from the meal that you're eating. So be sure that you tune back in then. In the meantime, as always, please share your thoughts, your questions, your ideas, your experiences, your aha moments down in the comment section below so we can have a chat. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'm Dani Spies, and I will see you back here next time with some more food for thought. Cheers. So many of us are stuck in patterns of